Amazing moment, single mom brings son to a blind date. What the CEO revealed will inspire you. Jessica sat in her car outside the diner, her heart racing as she adjusted her hair in the rearview mirror. She forced a smile, but it felt as fragile as a thin pane of glass. What was I thinking? The nervous anticipation swirled with doubt in her gut. A blind date? It felt more like a leap off a cliff than a simple night out. She could still hear Ben's encouragement echoing in her mind, a blend of innocence and hope. You deserve to be happy, Mom. Was this really happiness, or just a distraction? As she stepped inside, the warm glow bathed her in a cozy light, a stark contrast to the sterile brightness of the hospital where she spent her days. But even here, the weight of her scrubs sank deeper than her date attire. Did she belong in this world? Across the room, Ethan stood, clad in a tailored suit, projecting confidence like it was an armor. She shifted her weight awkwardly, hyper-aware of the divide in their worlds. A CEO against a nurse, could they even connect? Their conversation began absent-mindedly, polite small talk punctuated by the clinking of plates and murmurs of other diners. But as Jessica shared snippets of her life, the tales of her late father, the mechanic, flowed like a lifeline. She spoke of those years of sacrifice while keeping the darkness of her loneliness at bay. Beneath her stoic demeanor, insecurities rose. Would she measure up to someone like him? Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of the tablecloth, revealing a vulnerability she desperately tried to hide, but as Ethan leaned in, that spark ignited between them, a subtle magic shimmered just beneath the surface. Just as she felt her walls crumbling, a news alert blared from a nearby TV, cutting through their moment like a knife. Ethan Beckford's company faces scrutiny for ethical violations. The words echoed in her mind, each syllable a chime of betrayal. A punch to the gut that threatened to unravel everything. Was the man sitting across from her part of the problem or the solution? His explanation came slowly, a wavering bravado that dug deep into her professional instincts. She grappled with a razor-edged dilemma, asking more questions could lead her down a road that threatened to strip the evening of its promise. She ached for connection but recoiled at the thought of compromising her morals for the sake of fleeting happiness. As his voice faded, she looked into his eyes and saw weariness, a glimpse of humanity that mirrored her own struggles. I remember your father's work, he said softly, revealing a shared thread of history that intertwined their lives, grounding her in a moment that felt both intimate and precarious. The stakes just became higher. Before she could respond, the door swung open, and a burst of joy bounded in Ben, her bright-eyed son, trailing in with an effervescent energy only a 10-year-old could muster. The tension shifted palpably. He sensed the unease and innocently stated, "Wow, Mom, you look pretty tonight." That moment, surreal and sincere, floored Jessica. How long would she protect her son from the complexities of adult life before it swallowed her whole? Caught between her budding affections for Ethan and the unsettling truths that loomed between them, Jessica's mind raced. A single decision loomed ahead, a choice steeped in both fear and desire. What would she choose? Would she plunge into the unknown or shield herself from the chaos of potential heartbreak? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jessica's gaze flickered back to Ethan. His once appealing charm now morphed into a declaration of complexities she had just started to understand. The air hung heavy with uncertainty, a weight pressing on her chest, leaving her standing before an abyss of choices. Would she chase a fleeting moment of joy or confront the ethical reality of a bond fraught with implications? As the evening spiraled forward, the air thickened with the resonance of her heart's uncharted territories, leaving her burdened by the weight of what could be lost. The final decision loomed close, every heartbeat accentuating the tension between love and integrity like an uncut string ready to snap. Jessica looked at Ben, who clumsily navigated the tight space between the tables, his tiny hands gripping the chair backs for balance. The innocence in his eyes was a stark contrast to the complexity of the emotions swirling around her. Each movement he made grounded her, grounding her evolution toward the reality of her choices. "Mom, can we sit here?" Ben asked, pointing to the chair beside her, unaware of the tension permeating the air. "Of course, sweetheart," she replied, a hint of warmth creeping back into her voice. As Ben plopped down, his bright smile reminded her of why she sought this evening to unfold in a way other than solitude. But could she risk the potential abduction of their contentment by associating with Ethan, a man whose troubled business practices hung like a dark cloud over them? Ethan watched this interaction intently, fascination evident in his gaze. "Hey there, buddy. I like your enthusiasm," he said, smiling down at Ben as if trying to absorb the light he exuded. "Thanks. My mom always says I'm a whirlwind," Ben laughed, his carefree nature exuding joy that Jessica fought hard to hold on to. Ethan chuckled but glanced as if to measure Jessica's reaction, his expression shifting to one of deeper contemplation. "Family means everything. You're lucky to have such a supportive son," he praised, though Jessica sensed an underlying question in his tone, challenging her emotional defenses. "Yeah, support is everything," she said, a deliberate edge in her voice that pushed back against the emotional vulnerability creeping in. Could she remain resolute in her values while permitting herself the space to explore whatever this budding connection with Ethan might be? A moment later, she observed Ethan's eyes scanning the room, calculating, and she wondered if that analytical nature reflected a man constantly at odds with his career ethics. The conversation floated back to mundane topics: favorite foods, fun family outings, but Jessica's mind warred between what she felt and what she knew. The dance of infatuation with Ethan complicated matters even more. Each laugh and shared anecdote sliced through her defenses, illuminating not only her growing curiosity about him, but also exposing her fears about the potential collapse of her idealized version of happiness. "Jessica." Ethan's tone shifted, interrupting her internal conflict. "This situation at my company, it's complicated. I want to be open with you about it." His words snagged at her conscience. How many times had she sided with ethical imperatives in her career as a nurse, exposing her to the raw vulnerability of life and death decisions? Now faced with a potential romance, would she continue to uphold her values? In that instant, Jessica realized that this wasn't just about her budding feelings. It was about navigating the ethical waters between her and Ethan. She opened her mouth to respond, poised on the brink of revealing her true feelings when Ben interrupted. "Can I get some macaroni and cheese?" Ethan smiled at Ben as he turned to her. "How about that, Jessica? Let us all get some dessert too." The moment crackled with anticipation. Could she discuss her feelings while still maintaining the protective shell around her son, who stood with an untainted heart? Would her search for happiness risk darkening the innocence of her child's world? "Sure, let us go for it," she exclaimed, a spark of defiance igniting within her. The comment was directed at both Ethan and the choice stretching out before her. It was time to embrace uncertainty and stand at the intersection of love and ethics, knowing she needed to tread carefully. As they placed their order, Jessica felt the weight of this decision shift palpably, the desire to lean into happiness pulling her closer to Ethan, while her instinct to safeguard Ben reined her in. With each minute ticking by, she sensed herself steeling against a future veiled in potential heartbreak, yet craving something authentic like a breath of fresh air amidst the suffocating doubts. But Ben's laughter enveloped her, and in that moment, she had to confront something profound. Would she choose the illusion of a perfect life or the murky waters of reality where honesty and compassion dwelled? The clock ticked deeper into the night, her heart racing with possibilities, leaving her breathless. And as the plates arrived, something clicked. Jessica's heart raced with determination. Maybe it was time to unveil her curiosity about Ethan fully, to question him further. The fork was poised at the brink of a new path, leading potentially to love or disaster. Would she summon the courage to dive deeper, or retreat into the safety of familiarity? Before she could hash it out in her mind, her thoughts tangled in an unshakable question. Was the night turning into discovery or dissolution? The impending clash of values flavored the air as the conversation flowed, and she braced for what would be her most important question yet. What kind of person emerges when truth collides with desire? Jessica took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. The tension was palpable, forming an unseen barrier she wanted to break. She glanced at Ben, who was now gleefully interacting with Ethan, oblivious to the emotional turmoil swirling in her mind. A part of her wanted to relish this moment, basking in the warmth that radiated from her mischievous son, whose laughter was like a balm against her dread. "Jessica," Ethan said, drawing her back to the present. "Can I take a minute to explain some of the issues at my company? It might help you understand where I'm coming from." She hesitated, caught between the allure of vulnerability and the instinct to shield herself and Ben from unwanted complexities. "Sure, but could you keep it brief? I want tonight to be about more than just work conflicts." His expression softened, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of the man she hoped he could be, rather than the enigma of his business dealings that shadowed their interaction. "Of course," he said, his voice steady. "Their essay project I'm involved in that's been less than ethical. I'm in a position where I could influence the direction it takes, and I've been wrestling with my involvement. Sometimes, I feel torn between my ambitions and doing what's right." Jessica felt a wave of empathy crashing over her. His struggle resonated profoundly with her own experiences navigating the ethics of healthcare, where human lives hung in the balance of decisions made within momentary lapses of judgment. "That sounds really challenging," she replied, surprised by the sincerity in her own voice. "But you're not powerless to change the trajectory, are you?" Ethan's gaze intensified, and she could see the wheels in his mind turning. "You're right. My role can be a force for good if I choose." Just as she began to feel the energy shift between them, Ben clamored for their attention, raising both hands adorned with cheesy fingerprints. "Look, Mom. I made a cheese sculpture." "Shoot." The playful innocence of Ben's creativity pulled her back, reminding her of the magnitude of this moment. "That's incredible, baby. But maybe we should talk about how we can make it a Star Wars theme too," she suggested, redirecting her focus to him, but Ethan's eyes twinkled with appreciation for her nurturing nature. "Smart save there," he quipped, his voice lightening the mood. "I think secretly, I've always wanted to be a Jedi." Their playful banter sent ripples of delight through her, and for a brief moment, they were all just enjoying a delicious meal together, a small family united. In that exchange, however fleeting, Jessica felt an awakening. Was this what she truly desired? A life intertwined with someone who challenged her, who shared her values? As she looked at Ethan's playful demeanor and potential commitment to change, something within her stirred, but then, an icy hand gripped her heart. Could she really trust this man who stood before her? The nagging doubt resurfaced. What if their desires to connect were outpaced by the shadows of his decisions? The room felt claustrophobic. As excitement fused with apprehension, she wondered, was exploring this connection worth the risk of further entangling Ben in the unpredictable outcomes of her choices? Would he understand the consequences of their decisions, as she had learned to? Feeling cornered, she clenched her jaw, internalizing the conflict brewing between her practical instincts and the longing for emotional fulfillment. "Ethan," she began tentatively, "how do you plan to reconcile this situation? How can I trust you if the stakes rise?" The room stilled. She would need an answer, a revelation that could either solidify her trust or shatter it. The silence stretched, and Jessica prepared for the next pivotal moment, knowing that both her heart and Ben's future were on the line, and as his expression shifted from surprise to calculated focus, Jessica sensed this conversation could reshape everything. The path they were on bristled with the potential for clarity or catastrophe, and she braced herself for the truth that lingered just beyond the horizon. Would the truth set them on a path to sensitivity and authenticity, or lead to confusion and heartache? The atmosphere in the room felt charged as Jessica waited for Ethan to respond. The silence hung heavily, punctuated by the distant sounds of utensils clinking against plates and the soft laughter of Ben, blissfully unaware of the deep currents swirling around the adult conversations. Ethan took a moment, his gaze shifting to the floor as if seeking the right words from the ground beneath him. I need to be transparent with you, Jessica. This project, it's not just a personal struggle. It's a legitimate risk. I'm involved in a merger that, if executed poorly, could hurt a lot of people. It's a chance to elevate my position, sure, but at what cost? She could see the weight of his admission, the burden of morality pressing on his shoulders. This was no longer just professional for him, it was personal. And as he spoke, she felt a flicker of recognition. She had fought similar battles in the healthcare world. What do you plan to do? She asked, her voice steady despite the rapid beat of her heart. Because clarity doesn't come without choice. This is your chance to either contribute to something good or feed into a cycle of harm. His brows furrowed, and he ran a hand through his hair, visibly grappling with the enormity of the moment. I plan to push back, Ethan finally said, determination creeping into his tone. I've started laying the groundwork for a proposal that could revise the ethical implications of the merger. It's risky, and it could cost me possibly my career. But if I don't stand up now, when will I? Jessica's heart sank in her chest. The thought of him jeopardizing his future sparked a mix of admiration and fear. But what if it doesn't work out? What if you're sacrificing your security for an ideal that may only prove to be a mirage? His eyes met hers, and in that moment, she sensed a deep conviction reflected back at her. Then at least I know I tried. Isn't that what we should want for ourselves and our loved ones? To strive for integrity, regardless of the repercussions. There it was, the essence of his character aligned with her values. Beneath his business-driven demeanor, he possessed a moral compass that resonated deeply with her. Perhaps she had misjudged him, but still, a chill ran down her spine. Could she realistically invite this kind of complexity into her life? The risks were immense, she had been burned before. I appreciate your honesty, Ethan, she said, her voice softer now but resolute. But you must understand my trepidation about Ben, Ethan interjected, his tone shifting as he gestured to her son who was now proudly displaying his cheese creation. I get it. You're thinking about him. It's wise to be cautious, to protect your child from the tumult of adult decisions. She nodded, the concern intertwining with a touch of frustration. But it's not just about me or what I feel or trust. It's how this affects Ben. Ethan leaned closer, lowering his voice. If I proceed with this proposal, it's not just for me. It's a chance to build something better, something that could serve families like yours. If I succeed, it might change things. The conversation shifted subtly, morphing from personal risk to social responsibility. Could he indeed be a catalyst for change? Do you really believe that? She whispered, vulnerability creeping into her voice. In that moment, she longed to believe in the possibility of a different outcome. I have to believe I can make a difference, he insisted, unwavering. Jessica fought to hold on to her wariness, but the weight of his conviction tugged at her heartstrings. He wasn't just seeking to elevate himself, this might be an opportunity to redefine what success truly meant. But before she could fully grapple with her evolving feelings, Ben's cheerful voice broke through the tension. Can we make it a cheese and Jedi adventure, Mom? The simplicity of her son's plea brought a smile to her face even amidst her internal chaos. Yet, as she glanced at Ethan, aware of the dual paths sprawled before them, she recognized she was standing on the precipice of a decision, one that could reverberate through their lives. All right, buddy, she called back, but her eyes remained fixed on Ethan. Let us talk about what this means for us later. And as she encouraged Ben to blend Star Wars with his culinary art, she could feel the unexpected stir of hope and skepticism colliding within her. In that moment, standing between past insecurities and future possibilities, Jessica realized that whatever lay ahead, she would have to confront her own fears if she hoped to steer her course toward a more authentic life. What was she willing to fight for when it came to love, loyalty, and the complexities of their intertwined futures? The question gnawed at her. As the evening wore on, the answers hovered, tantalizing yet elusive, and with the flicker of candles illuminating their playful banter, she understood the stakes had subtly elevated. Both the past and future loomed large, and what came next would redefine everything she believed about trust, sacrifice, and happiness. As the night wore on, the flickering candlelight created a cozy atmosphere, offering a brief reprieve from the tumultuous thoughts swirling through Jessica's mind. Ben, fully immersed in his Cheese and Jedi adventure, took the opportunity to escape within his imagination, slicing through the air with his plastic lightsaber while crafting fantastical narratives. But Jessica's spirit remained bound by a weight she couldn't shake. The earlier conversation with Ethan echoed in her head, each word resonating deeply within her. His steadfast commitment to ethical leadership ignited something within her, a mix of inspiration and apprehension. It felt exhilarating to consider redefining success, yet terrifying to contemplate stepping into the unknown. Returning to the present, she noticed Ben's laughter, a delightful, unguarded sound that reminded her of the innocence and simplicity of childhood. As she watched him, a thought ignited like a spark. What would it mean to have that kind of zeal and trust in her own life choices? Every time she held back, she dimmed not only her own light but ultimately impacted Ben's growth and perception of the world. Could she truly enable him to believe in possibilities while afraid to step outside her comfort zone? The inherent contradiction gnawed at her. In her heart, she sensed she had been fusing herself to the sidelines, fearing the repercussions of making bold choices. The system she had safeguarded lacked the necessary vibrancy. But was she ready to confront the life she envisioned, no matter how unclear the path ahead? "Mom." Ben's voice snapped her from her reverie. "Can you help me design a new Jedi cheese ship?" "Of course." Jessica rallied, allowing her heart to lighten. Channeling her creative energy into Ben's playful project, she found joy even in the mundane. The little ship took shape, resembling a craft that could zip through stars. It was a small endeavor, yet felt monumental, a representation of making something out of nothing, of taking tangible steps towards something greater. As the clumps of cheese piled up on the counter, an unexpected clarity washed over her. She would need to summon all her courage, not only for herself but for Ben. If Ethan was willing to gamble on seemingly outlandish ideals, perhaps she had that strength in her too. Ethan's words replayed in her mind: integrity, responsibility, standing up for those who could not. Did that not mirror her own profession in healthcare? Yes, the stakes were high, and the risk could be detrimental to her comfort, yet dignity sprang from choices made in the face of uncertainty. What if it's not just about bravery? She pondered aloud as she shaped the cheese. What if it's about aligning choices with values? "Mom." Ben interrupted, his eyes wide. "Are you talking to the cheese again?" His innocent question made her chuckle and reminded her of the absurdity that always lay behind adult dilemmas. Life didn't need to be as complicated as she often made it. Beneath the mess lay possibilities waiting to be uncovered. "Maybe I am," she replied, a mischievous smile creeping across her face. "But this cheese is lucky it's about to embark on an adventure." As they transformed the cheese into a galactic fleet, a thought began to crystallize: changes don't always come from grand plans, sometimes, they flower through small, consistent efforts, like the moments she was sharing with her son. Each decision could chart a new course forward, a necessary metaphor for her relationship with Ethan, her profession, and the world beyond. After a rewarding huddle around their miniature creations, Jessica felt a rush of resolve. It was time to have another conversation with Ethan, one that explored synergy rather than fear. She envisioned a partnership where her dreams and his ethics intersected, potentially creating profound effects beyond their current realities. The following day, she would reach out to discuss not only their interaction but also their shared values. But even as optimism thrummed through her, undertones of anxiety lingered. What if confronting these feelings led only to failure or further complications? That uncertainty brought the whole evening back, igniting a restless thrill within her. Tomorrow would not only serve as a new chapter in her life but could also redefine how she confronted each choice with honesty, integrity, and purpose. As she tucked Ben into bed that night, her heart swelled with lingering uncertainty, but a flicker of hope flourished alongside it. She had begun to fight for something meaningful. But would she summon the courage to truly embrace the leap she needed to make with Ethan? That question sat heavy on her mind as she turned off the light, a melange of fears and aspirations swirling like the would-be stars of Ben Sch's ship, waiting to illuminate the darkness. And somewhere amid that chaos, a resolve began to form. Perhaps it was time to find out what happened when fear met faith directly in her path. The sun emerged timidly from behind the clouds the next morning, casting a soft light that illuminated Jessica's kitchen. As she sipped her coffee, the familiar warmth settled around her like a comforting blanket. Yet today felt different. Beneath the mundane rhythms of her mornings, a current of resolve surged, promising to propel her toward uncharted territory. She began her day by reviewing her notes from her prior meeting with Ethan. Each bullet point served a dual purpose, reassuring her of their shared principles while simultaneously nudging her to confront the brewing tension between personal ambition and professional duty. She sensed change looming, electric and charged, hovering just beyond her grasp. There was clarity to be found in this ambiguity. With each sip of her coffee, the decision crystallized. Jessica would not merely talk about synergy. She would demonstrate it, seek it actively, share her true aspirations, no more edging around the topic. The fear of failure still lingered, but it waited in the shadows, overshadowed by a burgeoning determination to embrace the dialogue that would reshape her reality. As morning turned to day, she pulled out her phone. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, adrenaline surging through her. Was she truly ready for this bold advancement? The question occurred to her, but she brushed it off, recognizing how long she had restrained herself from genuine pursuits. At work, the atmosphere hummed with activity, an unnoticed hive bustling around her. When she entered the conference room, her colleagues greeted her with nods of acknowledgement, but today she felt different, more centered. Resolutely, she settled into her seat, prepared to reclaim her narrative. The team meeting unfolded as usual, with updates and reports flowing from speaker to speaker. Yet Jessica found herself unexpectedly energized. The words around her morphed into a backdrop for her thoughts, paving the way for a bigger picture. She began to frame the concept she envisioned, her limitations faltering, each idea building upon the last. How do we innovate and lead with integrity? She posed, breaking into the routine agenda with a fresh vigor. As they ventured into the discussion, Jessica felt her voice gaining strength. She articulated her reflections on ethical leadership, drawing directly from Ethan's teachings. Their reactions varied. Some colleagues nodded along, intrigued, others exchanged skeptical glances. Yet the mixture of responses only fueled her resolve. She stood, leveraging her experiences in healthcare as a practical reference point. This was not only about innovating products, it was about pioneering a culture infused with ethics and compassion. Once the meeting concluded, Jessica found herself buzzing with energy. Each moment felt like a revelation. She had opened a door within herself that had remained shut for too long. Encouraged, she approached Ethan's office, her heartbeat growing louder as she knocked. Ethan looked up from his computer, surprise flickering across his face before transforming into a welcoming smile. "Jessica. Good to see you. What brings you here?" "I need to talk," she answered, a newfound confidence buoying her words. She stepped into his office, closing the door gently behind her, and began to share her thoughts, her visions, fears, and hopes. As she spoke, she felt the weight on her shoulders dissipate, transforming into the potential of a new partnership. The conversation unfolded, vibrant and fluid, eclipsing the tension of doubts she had harbored. He listened intently, and Jessica could see the spark of understanding in his eyes, encouragement dancing upon his features. Just as she thought the moment reached a breakthrough, Ethan paused, a shadow of concern crossing his brow. "Jessica," he began, tone sobering, "what you're proposing is ambitious. Are you prepared for the challenges that might come?" Her heart quickened, his words struck at a core fear she had tried to suppress. Vision without execution could lead to failure. But confronting this doubt felt necessary. She could not shy away now. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady despite the rising tide of emotion. "I can't hold back any longer. I want to step boldly into this, no matter the uncertainty." The commitment of her assertion hung in the air, a pact with herself and with him. It signaled a profound moment in her journey, one that would define how she engaged with her work and future, but as discussions continued, an unsettling thought sparked in her mind. Would Ethan truly be willing to collaborate? What if his values diverged from hers in unforeseen ways? In that moment of openness, she had embraced the leap, yet the potential for conflict loomed just out of sight, casting a tentative shadow over her emerging hope. Would this dialogue ignite a new pathway or present unforeseen obstacles? As she ventured out of his office, that tension accumulated, a tightrope walked precariously between ambition and fear, beckoning her into what lay ahead. Would her challenges inspire not only her but those she cherished? Each decision felt charged, now unanticipated yet exhilarating, setting the stage for what lay ahead. The day stretched before her, possibilities swirling like leaves caught in a gentle breeze. Tomorrow would bring its own revelations, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the real test of her resolve was just beginning. Would she rise to meet it, or retreat into the shadows of doubt? The following day dawned with a sense of urgency humming through Jessica's veins. The sun's rays poured into her home, now a conduit of reflection rather than merely the start of another routine day. She felt a compelling need to act, fueled by the commitment she made to herself during her previous conversations with Ethan, determined to explore her potential beyond the confines of her past fears and self-doubt. At work, that tension from yesterday's discussions with Ethan lingered, sitting heavy against her resolve. Each step toward her desk felt like traversing a tightrope strung high above the ground, brimming with opportunity but dangerously susceptible to missteps. Today wouldn't merely be about planning, it would be about execution. Once settled, Jessica sorted through her agenda with laser-like focus. The first order of business was to devise a strategy showcasing her beliefs in ethical leadership, tangible steps and actionable outcomes that would shift their corporate culture toward inclusivity and accountability. She surprised herself with the speed of her thoughts, each idea unfurling like a blossoming flower, bold and vibrant. The moment her colleagues filed into the meeting room, Jessica felt her pulse quicken. This wouldn't be a mere presentation, it was her call to arms. As their conversation slowly took form, Jessica stepped up, commanding the room with palpable energy. "Let us redefine our objectives and hold ourselves accountable," she began, shaking off the rust of hesitation. Imagine a workplace where leadership is synonymous with integrity, where each of us is empowered to innovate ethically and sustainably. What if we set benchmarks not only for sales and growth but also for our impact on the community and the environment? A mix of interest and skepticism stirred in the room, a dynamic she savored. The murmurs flowed like a current, bringing forth dissenting opinions and unexpected support. There was a raw honesty in this exchange, challenging her to articulate her vision more clearly, to bridge the gap between aspiration and reality. As her colleagues engaged in a fierce debate, Jessica leaned into the conversation. She listened, absorbed, recalibrating her thoughts in real time under their scrutiny. The effort required to maintain composure was significant, a trial by fire that ignited something deep within her. With each response, she found not only her voice but a growing sense of certainty their collective expertise could shape something transformative. "The status quo can't be our bedrock anymore," Jessica insisted, her tone unwavering. "We're more than a company, we're a community diverse in our thoughts, values, and experiences. If we want to lead in our industry, we need to embody these values. Let us put real processes in place that encourage transparency and feedback. What do you think?" To her surprise, the room began to come alive. Samantha, a staunch analyst and previously hesitant participant, nodded vigorously. "We could establish a task force to develop these initiatives, allow employees from all levels to voice their perspectives." Jessica felt an electric charge course through her. Each idea proposed seemed to build upon the last, creating a tapestry of innovation woven by collaboration. For the first time, Jessica saw a clear path from conception to implementation, a framework where ethics could thrive alongside profitability. Yet amid the enthusiasm, a shadow flickered at the edges of her mind, doubts she had to confront. What if their formulation of these aspiring ideals faltered when faced with the brutal realities of corporate politics? Would Ethan and the executive team truly support a shift that demanded deeper accountability? As the meeting wound down, Jessica's heart sank slightly. There was a chasm between her vision and the pragmatic approach needed to realize it. Would she stand alone if the tides turned against their ambitions? Her thoughts swirled as people began to disperse. Today's spark held promise, yet vulnerability remained. She had staked a claim on her aspirations but was yet to face the looming realities. The labyrinth of corporate dynamics awaited her. Would she navigate through it unscathed, or stumble over obstacles that tested her resolve? The fervor of success was intoxicating, yet the bitter taste of potential rejection paired with unforeseen challenges flooded her mind. Fueled by equal parts anxiety and excitement, Jessica resolved to share her ideas with Ethan again, knowing the pivotal nature of this moment could either lift her to new heights or plunge her back into uncertainty. The challenge ahead was not merely external but also internal, measuring her belief against the tide of skepticism. As she gathered her notes, her phone pinged with a new message that halted her thoughts. Ethan wanted to meet with her later that afternoon. A knot tightened in her stomach. Was he ready to embrace her vision, or was he about to bring caution that could stifle her momentum? The crossroads loomed before her, a choice to face the encroaching reality head-on or retreat into the safety of mediocrity. One thing was certain, the moment of truth was approaching, and she could feel the weight of it pressing down on her as though daring her to take the leap. Jessica sat in her office, her fingers drumming a rapid rhythm on the desk as she considered the implications of her upcoming meeting with Ethan. The air buzzed with an electric tension, a mix of anticipation and anxiety that threatened to engulf her. She glanced at the clock. Only minutes remained until she would confront the very person who symbolized both her aspirations and her fears. The office around her buzzed with the usual sounds of colleagues engaging in mundane chatter, but her mind was fixated on the gravity of the moment. A meeting with Ethan could either be her launchpad into new possibilities or the weight that shackled her ambitions. Jessica's thoughts circled back to the concept of ethical leadership she had just advocated for. There was clarity in her vision, yet a looming question remained unaddressed: would Ethan align with it, or dismiss it as impractical? As she walked down the hall to Ethan's office, Jessica focused on her breathing. She needed to exude confidence, to project the belief she was cultivating within herself. Each step felt deliberate, each breath a reinforcer of the resolve she hoped to embody. Yet, lurking beneath her stride was the lingering fear of failure, an insistent whisper that threatened to undermine her burgeoning confidence. Ethan looked up as she entered and gestured for her to sit. The usual tidy order of his desk felt alien as a cold knot of uncertainty gripped her gut. He regarded her with an expression that seemed to blend curiosity with judgment. Jessica was on the brink. "Jessica, I received your proposal from the meeting earlier," Ethan began, leaning back slightly. "It's ambitious, and a bit unconventional, don't you think?" There it was, the skepticism, sharp and immediate. Jessica felt herself tensing, her mind racing to formulate a defensive retort, but she paused instead. Defensive posturing wouldn't serve her purpose now. "What we've been doing isn't working, Ethan," Jessica replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil beneath. "The industry is evolving, and if we want to stay relevant, we must embrace a new standard of leadership. One that holds us accountable to not just our bottom line but also our people and the community." Ethan's brow furrowed, his expression giving nothing away. "I understand that, but change is slow, and we have to be practical. There's pushback at higher levels on any significant reform. The risks may not be worth it." Those words hung in the air, thick with a chilling realism. Jessica felt the temperature in the room drop, her internal resolve tested against the harsh current of corporate reality. This wasn't just a debate, this was a reckoning with her own insecurities and fears of rejection. Could she, against the odds, sway Ethan's opinion? Aren't we risking stagnation by playing it safe? She countered, a spark igniting within. Risk is inherent in progress. We can either be leaders in ethical change or be left behind as others move forward. Ethan's eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting moment, Jessica thought she caught flickers of admiration beneath the veneer of skepticism. She pressed on. "I know I may not have all the answers, but I believe we can assemble a cross-functional team to pilot these initiatives. We'll gather data, assess the impact. It's manageable, and it shows our commitment to evolve." Silence enveloped them, and Jessica sensed a pivotal shift in the atmosphere. The uncertainty mixed with hope sparked an unexpected determination within her. Perhaps Ethan wasn't the ultimate barrier she imagined. Perhaps he, too, was navigating the perilous waters of leadership, wrestling with similar challenges of his own. Finally, he leaned in, studying her intently. "If we were to consider this path, you'd need to be ready to handle some serious opposition. This isn't just about ideas, it's about implementation and facing the pushback head-on." Jessica nodded, all too aware of what would be required. "I'm ready, Ethan. I believe in this enough to stand firm against the tides. Together, we could ignite a transformation within the company that aligns with our core values." The clock ticked audibly, each second amplifying her pulse as she awaited his response, uncertain if she'd be met with retreat or reconciliation. The moment stretched, and in it lay the woman she was becoming. She realized that this was not merely about the initiatives, it was about proving to herself that her voice, her ideas, and her conviction mattered. As Ethan finally exhaled, a tentative smile creeping onto his face, Jessica felt a flood of adrenaline surge through her. The realization dawning that she was on the precipice of a significant breakthrough, one that radiated beyond her career into the very fabric of who she was becoming. But before he could speak, another message pinged on Jessica's phone, causing her heart to race once again. It was another request for a meeting, this time from one of the more influential stakeholders in the company. The weight of that invitation loomed large, demanding her focus and adding another layer of uncertainty to her evening. This was only the beginning, and she could feel the tide shifting. But the question hung in the air: would she navigate the waves successfully, or would the currents pull her under? As she prepared for this next challenge, Jessica knew the path ahead would reveal not only the company's destiny but also the depths of her own resolve. Jessica's mind raced as she left Ethan's office, adrenaline surging through her veins. The tentative smile on his face hinted at support, yet the weight of the upcoming meeting with the influential stakeholder loomed large, a delicate balance between opportunity and trepidation. Wading through the maze of cubicles, she replayed their conversation, dissecting every moment and inflection. There had been a shift. Ethan's earlier skepticism had given way to something resembling openness. Maybe this was at the turning point she had been craving. But doubt nagged at her like an uninvited guest, warning her that one misstep could unravel it all. Settling back at her desk, the request for the meeting with the stakeholder burned a hole in her thoughts. Who was she to command the attention of someone so pivotal? The buzz around her office faded into a muffled roar, her focus narrowing to the incoherent chaos within. She had advocated for ethical leadership, but now, facing the prospect of higher stakes, doubt clawed at her resolve. What would the stakeholder expect? Would they even take her seriously? She opened her laptop and pulled up the proposal she had submitted earlier. It was more than a document, it embodied her vision, her hopes for a leadership model that valued integrity and inclusivity. With deep breaths, she began to draft notes for the meeting. She needed to think strategically, anticipate objections, and tailor her message to resonate. In this moment of solitude and preparation, she discovered a hidden competency within herself, the ability to articulate her beliefs under pressure. As she formulated her ideas, she felt a moment of clarity washing over her. If she had the chance to face this stakeholder, she wouldn't just present a proposal, she would tell a story, her story, the story of why ethical leadership mattered not just to her but to the organization's long-term credibility. The clock ticked on, and calls to join an impromptu meeting echoed through the hall. Jessica hesitated. Should she put her preparations on hold? But a steely determination gripped her. This wasn't just about being prepared for a stakeholder meeting, it was about consistently asserting her presence within the company. She forced herself to rise, her heart steady as she stepped into the room. As the brainstorming session commenced, she engaged, balancing thoughts from her earlier reflections with the themes of collaboration and ethical standards. With every contribution, she felt the air change, subtly shifting toward her ideals. Colleagues began nodding in agreement, their resonance bolstering her confidence. Days turned into a blur of meetings, discussions, and research as she prepped meticulously for the pivotal encounter. She found herself increasingly immersed in the issues surrounding ethical practices within the industry. Each dip into the data only fanned the flames of her resolve. She wasn't just participating, she was evolving into a leader, one idea at a time, cultivating alliances with colleagues, forging a network that resonated with her vision. Yet beneath this burgeoning confidence lay an underlying fear of exposure, fear that one misfire could cut through her newfound authority. As the day of the meeting approached, she felt the pressure mount. After what seemed like an eternity, the hour of her meeting arrived. Dressed in a tailored suit that felt like armor, she made her way through the sterile corporate hallways to the conference room. As she stepped inside, she saw the stakeholder, a figure cloaked in authority and critical judgment, surrounded by executives known for their traditionalist views. Her throat tightened, but she remembered Ethan's advice about handling opposition. Jessica inhaled deeply, preparing to tether her emotions and confront what lay ahead. The time had come to face not only the stakeholder but her own fears, she thought, her pulse racing as she prepared to step into the arena. Would she rise to the occasion, or would she drown beneath the weight of their expectations? The moment of truth loomed, heavy with anticipation and potential. Jessica was on the brink of either affirmation or rejection, her fate intertwined with the outcome of this meeting. Jessica took a deep breath, steadying her pulse as she faced the room filled with scrutinizing eyes. The air simmered with tension, a palpable mix of skepticism and curiosity awaiting her every word. This meeting was a culmination of her journey, her chance to transform not only her career but also her identity. As she began her presentation, she felt the familiar thrill of purpose surge through her. "Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share my insights on ethical leadership," she began, her voice echoing slightly in the tense silence. "Today, I want to illustrate how aligning our corporate values with ethical practices can elevate our standing within the industry, reflecting our commitment to both our community and our stakeholders." With each slide, her confidence grew. She articulated her vision, a model that emphasized transparency, accountability, and inclusivity, blending her personal values with the company's objectives. The initial resistance from the room slowly gave way to intrigue, nods of acknowledgement replacing harsh scrutiny. One executive, known for his traditionalist views, interrupted her mid-presentation. "But Jessica, do you honestly believe that a push for ethical practices can coexist with our financial obligations to shareholders? Isn't that a bit naive?" In that moment, Jessica felt the weight of the question press down heavily on her. Yet, she stood her ground, allowing her conviction to anchor her response. It's not naive to aspire for a model where profitability and ethics are not mutually exclusive. In fact, companies that prioritize ethical decisions demonstrate better resilience and loyalty from both consumers and employees. Look at the data. I can provide case studies that validate this approach. Ethical investment often leads to sustainable growth. Somehow, her passionate stance seemed to awaken a ripple of engagement among her peers. The atmosphere shifted, and what had begun as an uphill battle morphed into a constructive dialogue. She allowed herself to breathe again, encouraged by the connective threads forming around her ideas. Minutes turned into a back-and-forth exchange, with executives probing her thoughts further, some still skeptically, others increasingly interested. As questions flowed, Jessica felt invigorated. This was her arena. She was no longer the timid nurse worried about judgment, she was a leader advocating for principles that always mattered to her. Finally, she noticed Ethan's candid gaze, sparking a reminder of their earlier conversations. Her heart swelled with a mix of support and pride as she met his eyes, aware that she was standing at the intersection of her past and future, transforming into the very embodiment of her teachings and aspirations. At the end of the presentation, the room remained abuzz. A senior stakeholder, one of the most respected figures in the company, rose to voice his thoughts. "I see potential in this direction, Jessica. Ethical leadership is a pathway we can consider seriously. However, we need strategic measures to ensure these ideals can operationalize effectively. If you're willing to draft a detailed proposal on implementation, I'd be interested in discussing it further." The words hung in the air, electric with promise. As colleagues began to express their support and interest in collaborating, Jessica felt the warmth spread through her, a sensation that was both invigorating and validating. This was the nexus of achievement she had been striving for, a world where her vision for ethical leadership could intersect with tangible change. As she stepped out of the room, the echoes of her colleagues' applause resonated in her mind. Jessica had taken a leap of faith and soared. She felt an undeniable sense of accomplishment wash over her. A newfound confidence solidified, promoting her presence within the organization and allowing her to articulate her intentions without fear. The road ahead was still strewn with challenges, but her perspective had shifted. She had proven to herself that she was capable of stepping into leadership, willing to embrace both the risks and the rewards. With every conversation, every presentation pushing against resistance, she was unearthing her strength and amplifying her voice, not just for herself, but for those who had yet to be heard. In the days that followed, she reached out to Ethan, eager to align their visions, pivoting toward a collaborative path thriving on shared ideals. Together, they began to strategize and reshape their values into actionable outcomes, forming a partnership that could steer both their professional journeys toward sustainable success. As she tucked Ben into bed each night, their moments became enriched with deeper meanings. The stories they shared transformed from mere fantasies of galactic cheese ships to conversations about ethics, courage, and purpose. She was not only nurturing his imagination but also planting the seeds of integrity and resilience that would guide him through life. Reflecting on her journey, Jessica felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had conquered the internal struggles and doubts that had once held her captive. The metaphorical layers buried deep within were being peeled away, revealing the leader she was meant to be, and so, she stood at the beginning of a new chapter, one that demanded courage, innovation, and the unwavering desire to make a difference not just in her life but in the lives of others as well. This transformation mirrored her most personal achievement. She had fully embraced who she was as a leader and mother. With clarity came purpose, and with purpose came an authentic understanding that she was destined to influence the world positively, both at work and beyond. If you found Jessica's journey inspiring, you need to subscribe now to the channel. This is the moment to show your support by hitting that subscribe button so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement matters. Comment your reactions and theories about Jessica's transformation. And remember to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Be part of this vibrant community, and let us champion the stories of personal overcoming together.